Bandysbooks. Today we are going to be doing a Booktube tag, specifically the intimidating TBR tag. I recently took a trip to San Diego and I brought home with me a lot of books. Not all of these books came from that trip. Some of these are from my bookshelves because I'm literally in the process of reorganizing all my bookshelves to accommodate the books I brought home. But I thought this would be a good time to go ahead and do one of these tags because I have so many books available to choose from. I thought a lot of them would fit some of the prompts from this particular tag. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into some questions. Okay, question number 1 is, which book on your TBR pile have you not finished? Sadly, everything that you see around me, pretty much, is a book that I have not finished. There's a few exceptions here and there, like I have Alice in Wonderland over there, which is a classic, and I've kept that book because I love it. It's one of my favorite stories, but I've read that one. Or like I have this one here, El Arroyo de la Llorona, that I've read. But the majority of the books that are surrounding me right now are books that I have not read, at least not in their entirety, and I am currently working my way through. Okay, question 2. What's a book you haven't had the time to read? So the book that I haven't had the time to read is a book I picked up in 2018. I was on a road trip to Glacier National Park and I stopped in Butte, Montana. There was a really cool little used bookstore, and in that used bookstore there was a great nonfiction section. So I ended up picking up quite a few memoirs, autobiographies, and biographies. And this particular story focuses on a large chunk of time in China's history and one of their most infamous leaders. It is remained on my TBR because it's so big. I don't necessarily find the history itself intimidating so much as just the length of this book. It's almost 800 pages, which is a really long read for something that's, history based for me. And that book is The Unknown Story of Mao by Zhong Chang and John Holliday. This covers Mao's life prior to becoming the leader of China, during the Cultural Revolution, and post. It is very, very dense and it's well written, but it is very dense and dry. There's just so much information in it. I've started it a couple times, but it's kind of overwhelming. And so I just haven't completed it yet. So this is the one that's been sitting on my TBR for a while that I haven't finished. Question number 3. What book have you not read yet because it's a sequel? So when I picked this book up, I picked it up because of the beautiful cover on the front of it. And it just drew me to it. I loved the title, I loved the whole design of the book, everything about it. And I read the summary and it kind of sounded like it was a sequel, but the person at the bookstore that I talked to thought it was not a sequel, that it was the first book. So I went ahead and bought it, and then sure enough, when I got home, it is indeed the sequel. So that book is Cazadora by Romina Garber, and as you can see, it does have a really, really beautiful front cover. I just love everything about the way this looks. The book number 1 to this is called Lobisona, so I'm going to be getting that very soon, probably in December. I'm on a no-buy month for November. So in December, once that's up, I'll go ahead and buy book number 1 so I can finally read this beautiful book. Okay, question 4. Do you have a book you haven't read because it's brand new? So again, I could say that for most of these books in these stacks. A lot of them are new to me, even if they're not brand new in and of themselves. But one brand new book that I bought recently is All Boys Aren't Blue, and that's by George M. Johnson. This is such a pretty book. I love the cover of this. I love the back of it as well. Be bold and brave and queer. This seems just like it's going to be a gorgeous book, and like I'm going to end up in tears a lot. So this is probably the newest book on my pile. Okay, question 5. Have you got a book by an author you read before but didn't really like? So this is going to be a controversial opinion, and it comes with a caveat. The author that I'm going to talk about is Margaret Atwood, and I know everybody loves her. She's celebrated. I don't really like her writing style. My personal opinion is that she's too dry and too fragmenty, and there's just something about her that I don't resonate with. and I've tried several of her books. I tried Oryx and Crake. I didn't care for it. I've tried a handful of other books. I didn't care for it. And the caveat is, the only exception to this is that I really liked The Handmaid's Tale. And I read that many years before the show ever happened. I think I was actually in high school, and it might have been like a required reading for an AP class that I took. But I remember The Handmaid's Tale being, like, the story was so engaging that I could overlook the fact that I didn't really love her writing style. So I picked up The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, which is the follow-up to The Handmaid's Tale. Again, I expect to not really love the writing style that much, but I am hoping that with The Handmaid's Tale, that it'll be engaging enough that I can kind of overlook the things that I don't necessarily love about her particular style. Question number 6. Is there a book in your TBR pile that you're not in the mood to read? Definitely. I think there's a handful of books throughout my TBR pile that I'm probably going to have to be in the right mood to read. I know that a handful of them are very emotional. This one in particular, I've heard, is one of the single most depressing books ever. Everyone that I know that's read it has said it's really, really good, but it's so sad. And that is The House of Sand and Fog by Andre Dubus III. I got this out of a little free library here in Las Vegas a little while ago, and I brought it home because the name sounded vaguely familiar, and I told my mom what I got, and she said, oh, that's a really good book, but it's super depressing. And since then I've read a handful more reviews, and kind of the same thing is mirrored by everyone, that it's a worthwhile read, but you really have to be in the right headspace. So I am saving it for the point when I feel like dealing with that emotional impact from the book. I don't want to be where I'm like really stressed out or I'm not feeling well, because then it's just going to make me not feel even, it's going to make me feel even worse basically. So I have it there, and when I'm in the mood to feel some deep emotions, I'll pick that book up. Okay, question number 7. What book have you put off reading because it's huge? I feel like what TBR list would be complete without a huge book from the one and only Stephen King? In this case, it's Needful Things. I have read a handful of Stephen King's books. They're all beefy and meaty like this. Needful Things is no different. This is, let's see, upwards of almost 700 pages. A friend of mine, Daniel, told me this is his favorite Stephen King book, and I'm looking forward to reading it very, very much. But when I have such a meaty book, I have to find the time, because I'm like one of those people where if I get really into it, I know I'm not going to want to put it down. And when it's 700 pages long, I need it to be like a weekend or sometime when I have like the time to really dedicate to it. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get to this maybe over Thanksgiving weekend. Next question. Do you have a book that you mostly bought because of its cover? So I have lots of books throughout these piles that I bought mostly because of their covers. Generally, if I go to the bookstore and I don't have specific books in mind, I'll wander around until I see covers that call to me. And I've ended up with some really great books that way. As I mentioned in a previous question, I picked up this particular book, Cazadora by Romina Garber, because of the cover. I thought this was really, really beautiful. And then I found out that the book that comes before it, Lobizona, is also really gorgeous as well. I recently found this book, The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali, and this one's gorgeous as well. I'm not usually a super big fan of paperbacks, but this one was really cool because the edges are made to look like stationery. It's got this gold embossing. It's really pretty and colorful. I also got All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson because of the cover. Same thing. I love the pastels, and this person on the front is just so regal looking and majestic, and I love the lettering and stuff on this. I find this to be just a really pretty book. I also got The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Cordova because of the cover. It's really, really beautiful. It's funny because I got this the day that it was released. I just happened to be in my bookstore, happened to walk past the display shelf, and thought this was really, really pretty. So I brought it home, and then I found out it was about Ecuador, and I was even more excited because I spent 3 months in Ecuador. It's one of my favorite countries, so ended up with that. And the most recent book that I bought, well, not the most recent, but one of the most recent books that I bought because of its beautiful cover is The Mountains Sing by Nguyen Phan Ke Mai. This is about Vietnam, immediately post-Vietnam War. And as you can see, it's got a lot of really beautiful coloring between the reds, yellows, and greens, and then it's got golden leaves, and that continues around the back. It's just a really, really lovely book. And the final question, which book in your TBR do you find the most intimidating? So this book right here, 2666 by Roberto Bolaño, is probably the most intimidating book on my TBR right now. And there's multiple reasons. So first of all, it is about an issue that is very important and very sad, and that is the femicide on the American-Mexican border. If you're unfamiliar, many women have died or gone missing along the border of Mexico and the US, and the vast majority of those cases remain unsolved. In certain parts of the border on the fencing, you actually can even see crosses that represent all the women that are missing. And this book discusses that. And it's also in Spanish, so I do read books both in Spanish and English. However, this is going to be probably the thickest, densest book that I've ever read in Spanish. For comparison, like I read Cien Años de Soledad by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I started reading the books from the Cementerio de los Libros Olvidados by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, which, you know, that's a pretty big meaty series as well, but it's a lighter subjects. They're a little, you know, they're fantasy fiction, historical fiction, so they're a little easier for me to get through. This, even though it's fictional, it's based on reality, and like I said, it's a difficult subject. I grew up 15 minutes from the border, so I am pretty aware of this particular issue. And this book is 1,100 pages long, so it's going to take me a long time to get through this one. I read much slower in Spanish than I do in English because I have to take my time to really, you know, intuit what's being said if I don't understand words, or to make sure that I understand the context. So that's why this is intimidating. I think it's going to be a great read. This guy is a winner of all sorts of awards. He's been compared to actually Gabriel Garcia Marquez as being one of like the best and most prolific Spanish writers currently. But yeah, I'm a little intimidated to get through this. Alright, so this has been the intimidating TBR tag, and as you can see, I have quite the intimidating TBR. It's very varied. It's the majority of the books are in English. The second highest majority would be in Spanish, and then I even have a couple books in French mixed in and out through here. It spans almost every genre. I think probably the least common genre that I would have would be romance. There's one or two romance books hidden in here, mostly because other people picked them up for me, not because I picked them up for myself. Lots of fiction, lots of nonfiction. It's spread pretty evenly. Some series, a lot of standalones, lots of great things to read. So I am doing No by November because I overbought in October, and so I'm working on checking off as many of these books as possible. I've already made a decent dent in it. I think I've knocked off like 5 or 6 books so far. And probably what I'll be doing is at least every other month throughout 2022, I'll continue the no-buy trend and continue to work on chipping books off the TBR. So I'm really looking forward to getting through these. I hope you enjoyed seeing my TBR, especially like this, where it's all piled on the ground waiting to be organized, so you could really see the span of the amount of books that I have to work with. And I'll be tagging a couple people in the description to give this tag a try themselves. So check out their accounts, poke them, and make them go do the TBR tag as well, because I want to hear about what they're reading. And if you've watched this video and you want to do this tag, consider yourself tagged as well. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. I always want feedback, know what's working well and what's not working well. And if you've read any of these books that I've mentioned, let me know in the comments below and let me know how you felt about them. I always love hearing feedback. And finally, if you have not already, please consider giving me a subscribe and hitting the notification bell. That way you always know when my videos are, being posted. I do post regularly. I'm working on changing my posting schedule right now, so I'm probably going to be posting Tuesday through Friday. I'm kind of nailing out the details right now, but I am very reliable. I never miss a week. I've never missed a day since I've started this account, and I hope to see you in the next video. Again, I'm Caitlin Bandy. This is my channel, Bandysbooks. Thank you.